Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Leadership Talk series. As you all know, we absolutely love interviewing some amazing women that honestly are doing such impactful work day to day. And so today we have Dr. Tyra Whittaker, and she's someone that I will tell you, we had her interview in our Behind Her Brand community group, and she gave such incredible insights on grants, nonprofits, and just some of the particulars of things that many of you guys often have questions about. And the women absolutely loved what she had to share. And I'm excited about having her here today because I know that many of you too have questions about grants. You have questions about what to do, not to do, and all these different type of things. And she is literally one of the most generous people in offering this type of information. And so I'm excited to have you here today, Tyra.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. And I'm excited to be here as well.
No, I appreciate it because this isn't a topic that people have so many questions about. But before we go into that, I would love for you to tell everyone just a little bit about who you are, your background, or anything you just want to share with us about who you are.
Oh, wow. I guess a woman of many hats, so to
Yeah.
speak. But I am, again, Tyra Turner Whittaker. I have a wonderful family. Been married 22 years to my husband, Simon. I have two children, a 16-year-old daughter who is learning to drive. So please pray for us.
I too have a 6-year-old son, same position.
There we go. So you feel me there. I
Yes.
also have a 13-year-old son
Mhm.
who is much taller than I am. He looks like he's about 20 plus at 13.
Mhm.
We chuckle at home that he's 13 and wears a size 13 shoe. So he's going to be a
Ooh,
big boy.
yeah.
Um, but lover of Christ,
Mhm.
I have been a counselor educator for 26 years, a proud graduate of Xavier University of Louisiana, as well
Mhm.
as Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Also, am a therapist, grant writer, as you mentioned, researcher, you name it. Again, jack of all trades in many areas.
Mhm.
So, again, I love doing a variety of things, and grant writing is definitely a passion
Mhm.
of mine.
Yeah. So I would love to ask you, why is that a passion? Because so many people run from it because it can be very tedious work. But I know that you generally have a love and passion for it. How come?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really, really have a passion for it, primarily because I grew up, even in my undergraduate program, working with grants. I was part of a grant that was the Tulane University, Xavier University consortium for
Mhm.
community service, and that was grant based. And that grant did such great work within the community. And so, just
Mhm.
really providing a voice and giving people tools to use in order to do the work that they are called to do. And many times we can't do that work, or we're limited in doing the work by funding. And a lot of individuals really, really kind of have come to a standstill because of a lack of funding to support their
Mhm.
cause or to support, the work that they are called to do. So again, grant funds allow people to have power and
Mhm.
access that they would typically not have in order to accomplish the work that they're called to do.
I know this is going to be like a broad question, but is there some commonalities or some things that you've noticed in your expertise that when someone's trying to get a grant, and maybe some do nots or things that you see that hinders them from being able to secure a grant?
Oh, yes. I think one is just the self limiting thinking. And I think that's where my counseling background comes in too. Sometimes
Mhm.
we talk ourselves out of feeling as though we will be able to get a grant. So we tend
Right.
to not apply. So I think that's one issue. I think the second one is not doing proper research and
Mm.
asking yourself, well, why do I really need a grant?
Yeah.
A lot of times I've had folks ask, hey, I need you to write a grant for me. I remember my dad asking me that question. I need you to write a grant for me. So why do you need
Mhm.
a grant, Dad? I
Yeah.
needed to pay off some of these bills. Well, those are not the
Well,
grants that I typically talk about there or write on. But a lot of times we have to ask ourselves the question, why do we need? a grant,
Yeah.
and why would someone trust me with the
Mm.
money that they're about to give me? And so,
Yeah.
just really doing that self talk, self reflection on why
Mhm.
you need a grant, I think is one big issue. I
Yeah.
think a second one is not doing proper research on the funding source. So, does
Mm.
this funder provide grants for what I want to do? And
Mm.
so we don't want to waste time because grants, of course, take a lot of time to write. So we don't
Right.
want to spin our wheels in the wrong direction. So, really
Mhm.
doing that upfront research on what types of grants this funder actually
Yeah.
funds, and really seeing, and actually, most funders will give you a copy of a
Mhm.
previously funded grant. So,
Oh.
really tapping into some of those resources as well to see, well, how was this grant structured? What were some of the
Mhm.
components that were there that allowed them to get funded? And so, again, doing that upfront research, I think, is very important.
You mentioned an interesting word that I think is so vital when whether you're doing nonprofits, business, grants, or what have you, but trust. So how can a potential um, someone trying to get a potential grant lose the trust of the funder? Um, yeah, how can they lose the trust of a funder or
Oh,
potential funder?
wow.
Yeah.
Kim, that's a really good one. I think number one, asking for more than what you really need is
Mm,
one way to lose trust out of the gate. Having been on the side of reviewing grants,
yeah.
especially federal grants, when
Hmm.
there's a grantee or an applicant, rather, that asks for more money than what they're actually proposing, it's like,
Yeah.
I think this person just wants to have money just
Mm,
because. So you lose trust on the front end. And so when that program or institution applies in the future, there's a tendency to say, I don't know about that one.
okay.
Secondly, once you have the money,
Hmm.
spending it not in accordance to what you proposed.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you received grant monies to use to, pay for students, if you will, to receive an education, and you take that money and you use it for something else, to buy more, cars, or to buy more, resources that are self-serving. A lot of times you see institutions that will take money and just use it to buy like a boatload of computers,
Yeah.
or just different things that are not really written in that grant, that will
Hmm.
cause not only trust to be lost, but also your funds to be garnered, because
Mm,
most of your funders have the ability to take the funds even once they are given to an entity. So again, just really misusing funds,
yeah.
or overestimating what you need money for.
Yeah. That's interesting because I can see how that can cause a lot of hindrance, especially if they see the motives or the intentions is not in alignment with what's being stated. And but you also mentioned too, and the first part of this was about self-limiting beliefs, and I
Hmm.
think that's something that people struggle with just in general when it comes to this area. What are some things that you see that people are saying or doing that's limiting their ability to really step out there in the space? And just to qualify that question, because I know for many people it's overwhelming. They see all these
Hmm.
grants and their first thought is thousands of people are probably applying for these. I would never get it. So
Hmm.
how do you work with someone in that space? Because that is a very real feeling.
That is a very real feeling. I think the
Hmm.
first question I typically ask is, why not you?
Mm,
Who's to say that this is not your opportunity?
yeah.
And to not talk your way, let someone else tell you no. Don't tell yourself no.
Mm,
And so just really addressing again the whys. Why are you feeling as though this may not be an opportunity for you, or why you can't pursue
mhm.
this grant? Who told you that? Where is that coming from?
Yeah.
And just kind of really digging down, because it's very hard to do the work of
Yeah.
writing a grant if you
Yeah.
feel as though you are defeated before you have even put pen to paper, or in these
Mhm.
days, typing out your
Right.
grant. I also share, one story from just from my history, my past, is that there was one federal grant that was posted, and I think they only gave out 3 grants that year. And
Hmm.
I would not recommend this to anyone. I found out about the grant maybe 4 or 5 days before it was due.
Ooh.
And the grant was for about $1.3 million.
Wow.
And so I remember spending 2 days like, why should I apply for this grant? Should I really apply for this grant? Shouldn't I? Do I have the time to apply? There's so many other things I need to be doing. And so it
Mm-hmm.
took me a couple of days to make up my mind. And I didn't really have that time to spend even doing that. But once I made up my mind, I literally, we talk about threes. It took
Mm-hmm.
3 days, and I had a co-writer as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
3 days to write the grant, knowing that they were only giving out three grants that year.
Yeah.
And I knew there were a sea of folks who were applying for this grant. So I said, well, look, let's just toss our name in the hat. Tossed it
Mm-hmm.
in there. And my thing is, once I toss it out there,
Yeah.
I just continue the work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So tossed it out there. And I got a call a few months later from one of our senators. And I'm like, well, what is this call about? I
Mm-hmm.
ended up getting the grant. And so, again, had I talked myself out of it or just assumed that because everyone else was applying for it, then I would not get it, I would
Yeah.
not have had that money. And that money was used to fund students to pursue their master's degree
Oh wow.
in rehabilitation counseling, and especially with a focus on racial and ethnic minorities with behavioral addictions, such as
Mm-hmm.
criminal offense, eating disorders, um, different types of behavioral addictions, pornography, sex addiction, you name it. We covered the gamut of addictions,
Yeah.
gambling. And so, again, had I thought that I would not be able to receive that grant,
Mm-hmm.
we would have never been able to support not only those students, but the clients that they serve.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You to get that grant, obviously you had to have experience in it in writing. And I know that's another big area of like, how do I write and what have you. So for those who are listening who are like, well, I want to pursue grants, but I'm not the best writing. I don't know how to write in a compelling kind of way. I know there's different options where people can hire someone, they can do certain things, but what would you suggest if someone is in that space right now saying, I want to pursue this, but I would not know how to write in a compelling way?
hmm That's a good question. The first thing that I would recommend is to take a look again at some of these previously funded grants
Okay.
and see the language that's typically used, because a lot of your grants require more technical language.
Okay.
And so you want to see how those grants are written and take a look at the language that's used. So,
Mm-hmm.
really going back to doing that research. The other piece is taking a look at the website,
Okay.
seeing how, what the descriptions are for the grants, seeing the
Mm-hmm.
language that's included in that. It
Right.
may also be helpful to partner with someone who is a pretty good writer and that will
Mm-hmm.
be able to support you in the writing as well. But
Yeah.
again, I think the best tool is to really do your research and take a look at the writing style that's usually used for those types of grants.
Okay. So I
Mhm.
know that you work with many people and organizations in this space. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do to help people who may be potential people seeking grants or even grant writing?
Gosh, it just depends on where they are in their grant writing process. With some, just really taking a look at how to find a grant. A
Yes.
lot of individuals don't know the types of grants that are out there or even where to begin. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with some, just really walking them through the process and knowing how and where to identify a grant that meets their needs. And so, a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially for those who are associated with academic institutions,
Mm-hmm.
taking them to the grants.gov database, which has
Mm-hmm.
every grant imaginable within the federal government space, as well as your state based grants and even your private foundation grants. So, really looking at some of those foundation websites to help them tap into some of the smaller dollars, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
are those dollars that will really help provide seed money, if you
Yeah.
will, to do the work that they're calling or being called to do or desire to do. So a
Yeah.
lot of them just really starting with them where they are
Mm-hmm.
and helping them to build up their toolbox in seeking grants, as well as getting those grants funded. And once funded, helping
Mm-hmm.
them to learn how to manage the funds once they get there and creating a structure or infrastructure in order to manage those grants. Because again, we don't want those grant funding to be taken away once
Yeah.
we get them.
In your experience right now, what do you see? And maybe this may be probably too broad of a question, but like some of the areas or industries or focuses that you see grants typically are more lent towards.
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. And I think part of that depends on the state of our nation.
Mm,
To be
yeah.
very honest, it flows. It literally depends on what's considered pressing
Yeah.
within our social political structure,
Mhm,
if you will.
mhm,
In one season, a lot of grants that really help marginalized communities were
mhm,
really at the forefront. And so you were able to find a lot of grants to really help those who are working in grassroots organizations. And a lot of
mhm.
those grants still exist.
Okay.
But right now, there is truly a real change going on in the atmosphere
Right.
where some of these organizations are fearful of not having these monies available to help
Yeah.
folks within the community. So, again, it really depends on
Mhm,
what's happening in the atmosphere. There are some grants also that believe in funding like the creative arts.
mhm.
Um, and so they may have a specific focus. So a lot of those are pretty stable. I will
Okay.
say that a lot of grantors are looking at funding more collaborations. So instead
Oh,
of having this one person who's
mhm.
applying for a grant, they're really looking at whether or not that group is able to work together and with
Okay.
other folks within the community who are doing similar activities. So just really looking at combining efforts with other folks within the community is something that's usually of interest as well.
That's interesting, and I like that because that makes sense because it can also help spread the funding dollars in multiple areas. So,
Absolutely. It helps to build capacity
mhm,
overall. And for many of these funders, they want to build capacity as well as have sustainability with all of the grants. So they want to see that their money is used as an investment and not necessarily as the sole support for an organization.
so I just have two more questions for you.
Oh,
You
sure.
know, based off of, and I'm gonna say this very like generically, based off of the current climate that we're in, if someone says, "Should I pursue grants?" Because it seems like there's so much stuff happening in the environment right now, is this the best time to pursue them, or would you advise someone to wait till things calm down?
I say to the first part,
Mhm.
absolutely pursue
Okay.
grant funding. I would not hold back. I would not wait. Again, we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And so I would seize the opportunity today. There's so many grants that are currently
Hmm.
available. So I would take a look at what's out there. And again, my philosophy is always let someone else tell me no, but I
Hmm.
am going to pursue at all costs. If I feel like I have the green light in my spirit
Yeah.
to go after it, I'm going.
Yeah.
And so let them tell me no in the process. So I encourage everyone to go ahead and seek funding for the different ideas that you may have and just let
Mhm.
someone else tell you no, but don't
Yeah.
tell yourself no.
I like that. I like that. So, do you have any closing thoughts for those who are watching right now and maybe they're new or maybe they have been rejected and they're ready to try again? And as you said, not tell themselves no. What
Yeah.
would be some of your closing thoughts around the people watching today?
Yes. I would say that rejection is part of the process. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have to get comfortable uh,
Yeah.
with rejection. And I would even rephrase that to say, uh, getting comfortable with identifying areas of growth.
Mm.
And so taking a look at those applications that may have been submitted and
Hmm.
rejected, and I've had those as well. And I
Hmm.
take a look at the scores that I received and the comments, because usually uh, grant funders provide you with a lot of comments about your grant and what the strengths were and what those weaknesses were as well. And so just really taking a rigorous look at the
Yeah.
comments and incorporating those comments in future grants. And then the reality is sometimes you see a comment and it's like, I don't agree with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there are humans who are doing
Mm-hmm.
this peer review process and reviewing the grants,
Yeah.
and humans come to the table with their own issues at times. And
Yeah.
so if it doesn't fit, I kind of say, hey, you know what? I disagree with this reviewer. And
Mm-hmm.
for those that I can understand and see what they're saying, I take
Mm-hmm.
their feedback and I
Mm-hmm.
use it to improve the next round of the grant. But what I don't do is just
Yeah.
put the grant on a shelf and say,
Mm-hmm.
I won't try anymore. And
Okay.
so, again, we have to get comfortable with those growth areas and know
Mm-hmm.
that they're only, even the ones that I don't agree with, can be used to create a better product in the future. So, again, just never put it on the shelf and walk away.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you so much for all your insights and the time that you shared with us today. If somebody wants to reach out to you or even just maybe, because I know that you have your own business and consulting firm as well, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. Either go to my website, whittakerinstitute.com, or email me at Tyra Whittaker at
Mhm.
gmail.com.
Okay. And we'll make
Mm-hmm.
sure to put that information up as well. But I thank you so much. You always are a wealth of information. And even in our time together, I mean, you shared so many different things that I know will be a blessing to those that are listening. And I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, and again for sharing this space, inviting me into your space, number one, and just allowing me to share on today. So, again, thank you so, so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And ladies, I hope that you enjoy this conversation today and feel free to post comments below. We'll make sure to answer any questions that are asked. And until next time, I pray that you have an amazing and blessed day.